Welcome back to Astronomical Learners, our YouTube channel where I share educational resources and information. And today I wanted to talk about American literacy. So, does your state care about literacy? Let's talk about it. Currently, 49 out of 50 states have passed some form of dyslexia related legislation. However, the strength of these laws varies significantly. What are my sources? So today I am not going to gatekeep. I'm going to openly share the sources that I use so you can use them as well in your advocacy. So over here we have State of Dyslexia, and it is by the National Center on Improving Literacy. And there you can go to the website, click your state, and find out exactly what dyslexia focused laws that they have currently. And then over here, this is the International Dyslexia Association website where you can go to their dyslexia legislation interactive map, click on your state, and learn out more. All right, here's another resource. This is when you hear people talking about the national reading scores. This is exactly what they're talking about. It is the National Assessment of Educational Process, also known as NAEP. So when we talk about these scores, this is what I'm referencing. So, why should you care? Maybe you're not dyslexic. Maybe you've never heard of dyslexia, but you might actually know somebody with dyslexia or somebody who considers themselves to be dyslexic. 5 to 17% of children have dyslexia. It is one of the most common neurotypes. 178 laws across the United States are currently helping dyslexic students, and 50 states have passed legislation related to dyslexia. But is it only about the percentage of students that need it? No. We need to care about all students when it comes to literacy. So you need to understand that there's going to be a small percentage of students that are hyperlexic or gifted. This means these are the easy students. These are the students that you can give them a book, they're not going to complain about it. They either taught themselves how to read or they learned in a very short time how to read. They usually are reading before the age of 5, they're decoding effortlessly. These are what most people consider ideal reading students, but they're a very small percentage. This is the majority or the most students that people think of when we talk about an average student is what we consider a neurotypical student. They're going to learn to read relatively easily, regardless of the method, and they get it with broad instruction. This is the essential group that we care about today. So when we're talking about the students that should be able to read but aren't able to read, it's because they have not been given structured literacy instruction. It is essential for them. Now, they could be dyslexic, they could be just a neurotypical student, doesn't matter, but for whatever reason, they are going to need explicit, systematic phonics, and these students will fall behind or become functional or slow readers without it. Now, when we talk about dyslexia, these are a group of students that are not going to learn no matter what without structured literacy. They are going to require diagnostic instruction. That means that this teacher needs to be trained in how to implement intense, repetitive, and specialized training. This is because no one's born learning how to read, so especially dyslexic students are going to have to rewire their own brain to make it able to become a reading brain. Now, what about blind and visually impaired students? We want to talk about this too because a lot of people come up with an excuse and say, well, not all students can read because, we have this small population. Blind and visually impaired students, while still important, are less than 0.2% of the general USA student population. And the reality is they can be literate as well because they have a Braille system, which is essentially structured literacy for blind students. Then we also have deaf and hard of hearing students. Again, they are a very small population, but they still are very important and they can learn to read as well. There's something called visual phonics or finger spelling that teaches phonological awareness, and that is the key to improving literacy. So, what is the goal for all student population? 95% is the goal. This is the most important information you can take away from this video because you want to understand this 95% rule. Neuroscientists agree, educational scientists agree, that with structured literacy, teachers can teach 95% of all students to read proficiently. The only students that we're talking about who may truly live a non literate life are those with severe, profound cognitive impairments, and that's about 5% of the population. Now, who is being left out? This is why we talk about the 40% group. This is the below basic population. The most current reading scores show us that 40% of fourth graders are scoring below basic level. Who are they? These are the students within that 95% goal who is designed to save. Scientifically, these students are on the ladder of reading. They required structured literacy instruction, but they are currently not receiving it. So these students cannot perform even the most simple tasks. Like if you're asking them to identify a character's motivation, they're struggling. If you're asking them to identify the main idea of a basic story, they are struggling. So, how do you know what your child is getting in school? This is what you want to look at. So, if you look over here, and I'll tell you right now, this is exactly what my daughter got in 2021 when we sent her to school for the first time. We got sent home a list of sight words. She was expected to memorize them. And I was just very confused. I was like, what? How is this helping her? This is what my daughter should have gotten. The teacher should have been trained in phonological awareness and taught parents explicitly, hey, this is what we're doing in the classroom. We are going to be talking about word awareness, syllable awareness, rhyme awareness, and it's called phonological sensitivity. And we are going to systematically teach all of these phonemic awareness skills so they master their words. So at the end of the year, they're not reading a list, they're able to read any words that they want to read within a scale of about 350 to 400 words, not a printed list of about 50 words. So, what's another example? So, these are the kind of books that my daughter was sent home. She was sent home leveled readers, and we go to the kitchen table and she would cry. And her teacher would tell her to look at the picture. Oh, look at that first letter. What could it be? They would teach her to guess. This is called the three cueing approach. It teaches readers a poor reading way to guess at the text in a word. What my daughter should have gotten is this structured literacy. This is the decoding approach. So when you're looking at the word male, you might not know that vowel team in the middle here, but if you know the sound and you know that a sound but you know combined with I makes the a sound, and then you add the L, you get male. So you sound out the letters and you blend out the sounds. So here's another example. My daughter would get sent home a reading log, even in pre-K. She was supposed to be logging her leveled reader books. This was doing absolutely nothing for her. What it did is it added pressure, it made it tedious, it made it not fun, even though they promote this love of reading idea. But when you put this level of pressure and tasks on minutes to be read, she absolutely did not want to do it. So, what she should have gotten was actually an assessment, a literacy tool that would tell us with data, hey, these are the skills that she's working on, and these are the skills that she's strongest in. She might have a weakness here, but matched us to decodable books within a scope and sequence that matched what she was being taught in her classroom and what she already knew. Here's another example. So when we walked in my daughter's classroom, there was a word wall. There was these shelves of leveled books. And I'll tell you right now, these actually have no meaning. The connection to the book and the letter is just made up. It doesn't make any sense. And then also, usually her school would lead her to a picture dictionary. They wanted her to memorize the pictures and connect it to the words. That's not how the brain learns to read. So, what she should have seen in a structured literacy classroom is a sound wall where the teacher explicitly teaches the sounds, and then the students have a visual aid to look at when they're spelling. So, if they're looking and they're reading and spelling, and they're wondering, oh, how do I spell that sound? They can look at the sound wall and see it connected to the letter A. Also, their teacher should have had access to decodable books. And then when it comes to a phonics dictionary, you want a dictionary with a scope and sequence that matches exactly what you're teaching as well. So, When we talk about decodable books, some people think, oh, well, if you just start with decodable books, you'll be reading decodable books forever, right? Incorrect. It's not like leveled books. It's not like you're, oh, stuck on one level forever. Decodable books are like training wheels on a bike. And this resource is from phonicsbooks.com. So it's a limited time for a reader to begin that confidence of decoding. So just like you use training wheels to get that confidence of once you're pedaling, once you know how to decode, same as pedaling, and you can do it fast enough with fluency, prosody, and automaticity, then you don't need the decodable books anymore and you can read any book that you want. So, when you're a parent and you're maybe observing a classroom, if you are seeing 3Qing, also known as MSV, where students are taught to guess words using pictures, context, or the first letter, that is whole language. If you're seeing implicit instruction, where the teacher hopes the child discovers how a word works by being exposed to just lots of high quality book, that is whole language. If you're seeing random and incidental teaching where phonics is taught on the fly, oh, if the teacher happens to notice a word in a story, that's whole language. If you are seeing leveled and predictable texts in the classroom where the books rely on repetitive patterns and are mostly just pictures, that is whole language. If you are seeing that the core belief is, oh, reading is a natural process, that is whole language. So, what should you want to see? So, in a structured literacy classroom, you're going to see that the primary strategy is decoding. The students are going to be taught to look at every single letter and blend them from the sounds left to right. And the teacher is going to use a explicit and direct style to explain a rule or explain a pattern. Nothing is left to chance. And then you're also going to see systematic and cumulative review. It follows a scope and sequence from simple sounds to complex patterns. And if you have an issue, your teacher should be able to direct you to the scope and sequence and say, hey, this is what we're learning this week. This is what we're learning in 6 weeks, and so on and so on. And the reading materials, you should have decodable text. Books contain only the sounds that the child has already been taught. They're not expecting them to guess at the page. And then technical skills, teacher believes that the brain must be taught reading as a skill through direct instruction and assessment and using that data and providing specific teacher training, or the principal and the school are providing that teacher training, but they're not assuming that it's a natural process. All right, so parents, you need to know that all students will need from birth to 6th grade these skills in order to get to the goal of reading comprehension. A lot of people assume that once you get from decoding, you can go straight to comprehension, and that's not true. You need the foundation of vocabulary and oral language skills in the language that you're reading and writing in. So if a student's first language is not English, you can't expect them to have reading comprehension immediately. They need that strong foundation. And then if a student is in kindergarten, they need that strong foundation from birth. So that's why it's important, not just as teachers and parents and communities, but we all need a hands on deck to improve literacy in America. Now, when it comes to the states that are doing the right thing, let's talk about them. The current leaders, and it doesn't mean that they're perfect, it just means that they are currently leading the charge and doing the right thing, are Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, Ohio, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and Wisconsin. Woohoo. So, what are they doing right? They are requiring universal screening and mandating science of reading aligned curriculum, and are providing a state approved list of materials that excludes leveled readers and 3Qing strategies. So, what are the states that are making progress but are still lacking some laws that might help students? Let's list them out: Alabama, Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Washington. So these states have dyslexia handbooks and are requiring teachers to have some professional development, but the local districts still have a lot of curriculum control, meaning that 3Qing might still be being used in a balanced literacy classroom, and that oversight can sometimes people are like, oh, that's too much government. But in order to be very meticulous and impact literacy in the right way, yes, we do need some oversight. All right. So here are the states that are kind of like the last to go or that are, kind of lagging behind. So we have California, and I'll tell you right now, it's because they are historically the state known for promoting whole language. They still have people that are making curriculum that is still including whole language and three queuing and are choosing and publicly saying that they're not going away from it. So that's why we're seeing that lag there. Also, we have Hawaii, Montana, South Dakota, and Vermont. So these states are relying on encouraging their school districts rather than mandating school districts to teach specific evidence-based practices. And this is good in an idea sense. It's a good concept, but in practice, it doesn't work. We need to mandate that instruction. So, what is the recent timeline? I want you to understand that you might hear of the three queuing ban wave, and I highly recommend you listen to the Sold a Story podcast to understand why. So, this happened in about 2023 to 2025. It was where 17 states, including Arkansas, Indiana, and Kansas, passed explicit bans on three queuing model. These laws legally prohibit schools and teachers from teaching students to guess words based on pictures or context clues, marking the first time states have outlawed specific instructional habits. Also, we have the expansion to adolescent literacy. This is from 2024 to 2026. So, policymakers realized that fixing K through 3 was not enough. So, states like Virginia, Indiana, and Alabama are extending science of reading mandates into grade 8. So, the new 2026 budgets, we're going to see these improvements. Now that we also have the mandated literacy coaches. This is very new for my state. It just passed. So in Georgia, we're going to be seeing similar bills. Other states are moving to fund full-time literacy coaches in every K through 3 public school. This will shift the burden off of individual teachers and put a structured literacy expert directly in the building. This is very helpful because you might have a very good structured literacy teacher, but if the math teacher doesn't know how to make a word problem more decodable for a student, they're going to need that coach. If a science teacher doesn't know how to make the science lesson more decodable, they're going to need that coach. If a history teacher doesn't know how to make the history passage more decodable or understandable or teach the rules that we can do to help the student read above grade level texts, that coach can help that teacher. Also, we have higher education and teacher prep audits. This is the most recent. So, states are trying to clean the tap by targeting teachers where they are trained. And this is because the change is going to come mainly from the top down, not just from the bottom up. So, states like Delaware, Minnesota, and New Mexico are conducting mandatory audits of university teacher prep programs because a lot of teachers paid $40,000 to $60,000 for a degree and they were never taught structured literacy. They were given balanced literacy training, whole language training, reading recovery training, and those are all been debunked. And so those schools will risk losing state accreditation and funding. There's also the New Mexico milestone. This is the most recent from February 2026. New Mexico passed the High Quality Literacy Instruction Act, which is being hailed as the gold standard for second wave of reform. It codifies structured literacy into law and provides a strict enforcement mechanism for high quality instructional materials, ensuring that leveled books are replaced with decodable text statewide. So, what can you do after watching this video? Number one, to advocate effectively, you'll need to know what is being banned in the newer and stronger laws. So, number one, we want to focus on three queuing, or what they call MSV. This is the practice of telling children to guess at a word based on a picture, meaning the sentence structure, syntax, or the first letter, visual. Strong laws, like in Georgia and Arkansas, are explicitly stating that instructional materials shall not include those that employ the three queuing systems model. Also, we want to ban or recall leveled books. These are used in balanced literacy classrooms. They're usually made by Fountas and Manel and Lucy Calkins. They are harmful because they include words that children have not been taught to decode yet. So it forces kids to use this three queuing model. And so advocates are pushing for decodable text instead. I would even argue that we can use the vintage phonics books that a lot of us grew up on. There are decodable chapter books available too. So let's make an action plan. So this message is for parents. So if you're listening, number one, ask your teacher for your curriculum. If they don't know, go up the chain of command. Ask the curriculum development professional in your school district. Ask your school for the name of the reading program. If it's called Units of Study or it's made by Fountas and Pinnell, that is a red flag because it most likely uses 3Qing. You also want to request decodable books in your child's classroom. In school meetings, request that your child be taught with decodable readers. Have a PTA meeting. Do fundraisers to buy decodable books and get rid of the leveled readers. Also, use the resources you've seen in this video. Use the map. Go to the International Dyslexia Association interactive map. Find your state specific bill numbers. Cite these when you're sending emails and talking to people, especially the Board of Education, so they know that, especially in one of these states, they might have to follow the laws because of a mandate. Also, for teachers, number one, teachers, you should be asking for letters training. Language essential for teachers of reading and spelling. This is for the theory of how the brain learns to read. I say this because lots of times teachers are blamed for students that are not making progress. But if you don't have that training, how can they blame you? Also, once you get that training, seek a CERI certification. It's the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. It's the certifying body for the International Dyslexia Association, and even the free Cox Campus structured literacy and training I took qualifies for that certification. Also, teachers, audit your classroom library. Remove the predictable textbooks. Remove the leveled readers for the beginning readers and replace them with phonetic decodable books. Also, advocate internally if you can. Present the Reading League's definition of structured literacy to your principal. Show them why balanced literacy is failing the bottom 30% of students. Listen to the Sold a Story podcast. Even on the website, they have a guided reading kind of guide. So if you and a few teachers want to get together and learn more, you can do that. Also, the best always free resources I will always recommend is Cox Campus Training. It is the best free resource. They offer completely free, and it is International Dyslexia Association or IDA accredited structured literacy certificate that they offer. Also, Reading Universe. It's a collaboration between Weta and Reading Rockets and other experts, and it features a full taxonomy that shows you exactly how to teach every single skill when it comes to structured literacy, and they have a paraprofessional reading certificate online as well. Also, there is free dyslexia training from Microsoft Learn. It's a partnership with Made by Dyslexia. So if you're a teacher and you suspect dyslexia in your classroom, maybe you have a student that's not going to get identified because 80% of students are going to reach adulthood without getting identified, you will know from dyslexia training on how to be more an inclusive teacher. So, for tutors and advocates just like me, what can we do for our action plan? Number one, we can support 3Qing bans. Follow organizations like Decoding Dyslexia to find out when the testimony is needed at the state capitol. Educate local school boards. Many school board members have no clue what 3Qing is. You want to provide them with the Excel in Ed model policy on prohibiting 3Qing instructional materials. So, we're going to go for the gold here, right? We just finished Winter Olympics, so the literacy revolution is here. We are currently in the most significant shift in reading instruction in over 70 years. The science is settled. Reading is not a natural process. While 5% of the children may teach themselves to read, another 35% may learn regardless of the method, but the remaining 60% of students, including those with dyslexia, will depend entirely on access to structured literacy instruction in order to become a proficient reader. So the data from the nation's report card proves that guessing strategies like 3Qing and using leveled readers have failed our students for generations. When we embrace this 95% goal, we are acknowledging that nearly every child can read if we align our teaching with how the brain actually processes language. So, these are 3 takeaways that you can take away from this video if you learn nothing else. Number 1, the goal, 95 literacy proficiency. The method, structured literacy. The time is now. So, thank you so much for watching today and taking time to watch this video and listen to this video. The time to care about American literacy is now, so I hope you will join me in passing the torch and educating people on why we need structured literacy.